Welcome to Mating Matters. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh. This is a special bonus episode where I'm about to answer a question that one of our listeners left on our Mating Matters podcast voicemail, if you will. And before I do that, I want to say that it is wonderful getting to sort of meet the community, both in the emails you send to me or messages you post on social media. The social media is at Dr. Wendy Walsh. And I've learned a few things. One is that you're all really hungry for this knowledge. But I also know that sometimes this information can be a little bit disturbing. You know, when you step back and think of human beings as animals, competing with one another, competing for resources, having tribalism that shows up in our politics, and the fact that people fight each other for mates, that they hurt their own mates and the people they love. Some of this information can be very disturbing, especially because it sounds like I'm normalizing it. And I hate that word normal because there's no such thing as anything normal. On the other hand, there's nothing abnormal. It's just the way that humans relate across a lifespan. So short of giving you a trigger warning, I do want to say that sometimes when you listen to the episodes of Mating Matters, because they're filled with anthropology and evolutionary psychology, sometimes some feelings may bubble up that might be uncomfortable. It might make you question your life, your motives. It might make you question the other people in your life or even your values. And I just want to say that if that's happening, then I'm doing my job. Because what I'm trying to help people do is to process intellectually through their prefrontal cortex a lot of instinctive impulses and reflexes and sort of animal feelings that if we take the time to really think about, why do I feel this way? Why is this happening to me? We can actually live healthier, I think, happier lives. So that's my kind of disclaimer. I just want to let you know that, as I said, I'm getting your emails, and 99.9% of them are so positive, and producer Brooke Peterson and I are so grateful for the feedback because it's so nice to hear from you. So I'm particularly giving you this little warning because I'm going to talk about race. And as you know, in this country, there is a history of racial trauma. There's so much pain, so much intergenerationally transmitted trauma that I believe is running through people's DNA as much as is being learned through storytelling. And so it tends to be a very sensitive topic. It's also a topic that is difficult on one level for me to talk about because I come from a place of privilege. And you could say, how can she know? How can she understand? I actually did my DNA test recently, my anthropology, my racial DNA. And my children were excited to learn that I was 1% African, although I assured them that pretty much every Homo sapien is at least 1% African at a minimum because we all come out of Africa in some way. My children were happy to hear that, of course, because my children are biracial, African-American, Irish, Canadian. And anyway, before I play the question from our listener, I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of race. And not so long ago, anthropologists identified about 20 different species of humanoids. Remember, these were ape-like creatures, humanoids, who fought for resources, who fought for territory, who fought for mates. Was there some interspecies mating? Perhaps. In the end, we are left on the planet with 5 great apes. And those apes are bonobos, chimpanzees, orangutans. What am I missing? There's one more. Oh, gorillas, of course. And then us, Homo sapien. And we did not evolve from chimpanzees. We did not evolve from gorillas. We did not evolve from bonobos or orangutans. We all had a common ancestor. And all human beings had that same ancestor. And so what we're left today are these 5 great apes. I want to be very clear that race is sort of a modern concept, the biological idea of race. And when I say a modern concept, anthropologists speculate that the reason why our skin tones varied depended on where our ancestors lived on the planet. We all came out of Africa. We all, once upon a time, had brown skin, I guarantee you. And as we moved around the globe and had less need for skin protection in the form of melanin, our skin got lighter and whiter. Last year, I was visiting Stockholm, and I went to a village, northern Sweden, and they had a beautiful replica of an indigenous village, how people lived thousands of years ago in Sweden. And the indigenous people of Sweden actually had white skin, right? Because less sunlight, they didn't need as much melanin. If you lived in a darker place with less sunlight, you would lose melanin in your eyes. Your eyes would get lighter and bluer. For instance, if we're talking about race and the anatomy of humans based on the weather, essentially, look at, say, a Maasai warrior who lives in a very hot, dry climate. Her body or his body is very tall and thin to help dissipate heat. Right? The more squat you are, the more you can collect sun and heat up your body. Also, their hair is very coarse and curly to, again, help dissipate heat from the brain. Now, compare that human to an indigenous person in northern Canada who is round and squat with lots of fat stores around the vital organs in the middle of the body. That's to keep the vital organs warm during very cold winter. The hair is very thick, very straight, and fits the head like a cap to keep the brain warm. So if you start to look at race as just an indicator of what kind of weather your ancestors had, you will understand it better. Now, as people are taking their ancestry tests, their DNA tests, they're starting to learn that we're all mixed up with a lot of things and that we carry DNA that can fight off certain diseases. We're prone to some and we can avoid others. Now, whenever I talk about evolution, the evolution of man, there's always somebody out there who has been taught from an early age to take the lessons in the Bible from a very literal, concrete place, because it's very comforting. In fact, religiosity and faith has been shown to extend lifespan. People who are faith-based and follow a religion live longer and have better health along the way. All right, so that's what I wanted to say about race. Now, again, before I go to my listener's question, boy, I keep teasing it. I just want to say one other thing. There's a difference between race, ethnicity, and nationality, and these three terms are often used interchangeably, but I'm not sure that everybody understands the difference. Race is a biological construct, right? When we're talking about somebody's race, we're talking about the color of their skin, the shape of their hair, their face, or facial features, etc. When we talk about nationality, we just mean what name is on your passport. It's a political construct. Which nation are you a member of? And when we talk about ethnicity, we throw in culture, right? Culture. What we've learned from our family, from our media, from our friends, what foods our people like to eat, how we like to live, what our morals, our values are as a group, right? And so when we create a self-identity, our self-identity may very well include race, ethnicity, and nationality, and one may be more dominant to us than another, but these are three distinct constructs. Okay, with that said, let us play the question from one of our Mating Matters listeners.
I have been in a few interracial relationships, and I've only dated people that were different than me, and it's just something that I've noticed ever since I was young, that that's what I preferred, young, in 7th grade. So, and I'm 24. So yeah, this is something I've always been so interested in, why?
So it sounds like your basic question is, why are you attracted to other races? Well, I guess I would more often ask, why are we attracted often to the same race? There is some evolutionary thinking that perhaps in our anthropological past, people who looked different could have potentially been from warring tribes, right? They could have been from somebody who was an enemy to our people way back when. And, we also talked about in the episode, The God Who Clubs, we talked about how rape was often used as a tool in war. So there's one reason why sort of like people get attracted to like people. However, sexuality is really interesting. It's not inherited. It's not at all. Sex researchers have looked at it and said, it's almost always learned behavior. Now, I want to distinctly say sexual orientation towards a particular sex of a person, whether they are same sex, whether you are bisexual, that is a little more hardwired. Trust me. It isn't just learned because you went to school and there were cute gay boys in the class with you, so you said, I'm going to join them. There's a lot of biological pieces to that. But what turns you on? What look in a person? What color of their skin, what style of being, what culture, what ethnicity. That stuff is learned. And it's learned from early life experiences. Sometimes we don't even remember what we're responding to when we get a sexual arousal trigger, but something might have happened early on. In my own case, people often ask me, so you have biracial children, African American, what happened with you? I've thought about this a lot. And one of the things I will tell you is that in the 1950s, my mother moved from Nova Scotia, Canada by herself to Bermuda, and she worked in a resort in Bermuda. I have her photo album from the time. I have some of her writings from the time. And I can tell that she was attracted to Black men in Bermuda. I can honestly, this was her young single girl experience. My mother was late to get married at the age of 31, which in 1960 was late. And so I think there is some intergenerational transmission of that love. And it could be as simple as her showing people of color a little more kindness, or her flirting maybe. And when you're a kid, you're like a sponge and you just kind of pick this stuff up. I distinctly remember one story that my dad was away at sea because he was in the Navy, and our house was in a subdivision that was kind of near the highway. And late at night, we were asleep. I do not remember it happening. I remember my mother retelling the story on the telephone over and over to all her girlfriends the next day. And I would have been only like 5 years old. And she tells this story that there's a knock at the side kitchen door at 10 o'clock at night. She's alone in the house with 3 kids. And she opens the door, and there's a tall Black man standing there. And she tells the story like this. I open the door, and I see this tall Black man. I was like, was she scared or turned on? Like there was really something in her voice that I was trying to read as a kid. Anyway, his car had broken down. So she let him into the kitchen to use the phone and sent him on his way. He got a tow, whatever happened. And that was that. But it was the tone of voice when she told that story that was a secret message to me that this was a positive thing. Then she went on to create a community organization to force a kind of amalgamation of the Black neighborhood school with the white neighborhood school. Now, in Nova Scotia, Canada, we didn't have kind of legislated segregation like they had in America. But, kinfolk live near kinfolk. And so she kind of forced closure of that. So by the time I started kindergarten, I went to a school that had, 50% Black students. So I can tell you that all my early crushes, all the little, when boys like you in second grade, they punch you, right? And all the ones that drove me crazy, made me mad all the time, and we ran around on the schoolyard, which meant I had crushes on them. They were all dark-skinned boys. So long story short, my children are biracial, Black and white. So I've done, obviously, a deep dive into my psychology and why it happened. I should pause to let you know that for many Americans don't realize that the true ending of the Underground Railroad was in Nova Scotia, Canada, because the British were running ships full of freed slaves to Nova Scotia from New York and giving them land and the Canadian version of 40 acres and a mule, and giving them some degree of freedom. Not that life was easy peasy. But just to let you know that that's why there's a huge population of, I guess you could call them African Canadians, although I believe they self-identify African American, North America being the place. So let me answer your question. Look into your childhood. Ask yourself what messages your family of origin gave you about different races. Ask yourself what kinds of schools you went to, what kind of people you were exposed to. Sometimes it may be that you're reacting to something you don't like within your own race and something that might have happened as well. But definitely it was learned. It was learned by what you saw and what you experienced early in life. And is it a bad thing? Absolutely not. 1 in 7 United States marriages are interracial, and that number keeps growing. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Race is a pretty recent evolution in us. It's about moving around the planet. Ethnicity is about culture, and your attraction to people of different races or ethnicities probably has to do with what happened in your early life and what you were exposed to. Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Mating Matters. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh with producer Brooke Peterson. If you would like to call us at any time with questions or comments, we do have a voicemail line. The number is area code 323-207-8277. That's 323-207-8277. And we are continuing to work on longer form, highly edited, well-produced episodes for you. But in the meantime, we'll put a bonus episode on when we don't have one complete. Remember to share us on social media. Everywhere my social media is at Dr. Wendy Walsh, just Dr. Wendy Walsh. And if you like the podcast, especially one of the long-form episodes that we've made, please share it with a friend. Just hit the share button and let people know, because people do not Google around saying, I'd like to look for a podcast on this. They only listen to podcasts when somebody says, this is a great podcast, you should listen to it. So thank you so much for listening. It's been fun growing this community. I think we're very close to 100,000 listens now, and it's so nice to know that you're out there, and we love your comments and your feedback. It really helps us. Thanks for listening to Mating Matters.